What's up guys, HCZ here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we are profiling the last deck out of Duels from the Deep, and I have to say that this deck is basically the favorite of mine out of the three in this set, just because it is the one that is not the most competitive build, but it's a really fun deck that you can catch a lot of people off guard with it. So today we're taking a look at the UMI deck, the deck that features a lot of the monsters that Mako Tsunami used in the anime, and we have a lot of retrains from a lot of anime cards here, so this deck feels very nostalgic on top of being an actually really fun deck to use. So I'm going to show you the build that I've come up with. It's basically a control type of stun deck that uses a lot of floodgates effect and a lot of negation to protect those floodgates. So if it goes first, it does have a lot of opportunities to basically win games. It kind of struggles going second, so I've put some cards in the deck to try to figure out a way to make it better going second. But again, it's a deck that is mostly for fun. It's a very roguish deck. It's nothing competitive, but it's a really fun deck to use. And if you're a fan of water decks, then I highly recommend playing this deck. So before we begin, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck profile. So let's start with the monsters. We have 3 copies of Ocean Dragon Lord Kairyu-Shin. This card here is the main win condition of the deck. So while UMI is on the field, each player can only control one face-up non-water monster. So this is the floodgate effect that you're relying on the most in order to win your games. So if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have a lot of water monsters, then it's very easy to basically make sure that your opponent doesn't get a lot of monsters on the field, and you can deal with what little they have on the field with other effects that the deck has, because the deck, even though it's nothing competitive, I can say that it does have a lot of really powerful effects, and this is one of them. And on top of the floodgate effect, during your main phase, you can add from your deck to your hand one card that is either a Kairyu-Shin spell or trap, a Stealth spell or trap, or one UMI from your deck to your hand. So this card can also give you a surge on top of being a floodgate, and this card is a level 5, but the thing is, the best UMI card that can be treated as UMI is Legendary Ocean, which decreases the levels of all water monsters on your field and in your hand, so you can basically treat this card as level 4 in your hand to normal summon it without any tributes. So this card is very easy to get out. There's also another card in the deck that we'll talk about right after that can get this card to the field as well. So yeah, this is the main win condition. It's the card you want to be getting out as consistently as possible, because it's the card that's going to win you most of your games. We have 3 copies of Electric Jellyfish. This is the card that's mostly the utility of the deck, but also being the Omni Negate of the deck. So this card on field, you can send an UMI from your hand, deck, or field to the graveyard to special summon a water monster from your hand. So this is another way you can get Kairyu into the field, even if you don't have a way to get access to UMI. So you can basically get another monster on the field, and then you can get a surge, which will then get you into UMI, so he can get his effect live. Also, this card, as a quick effect, while you have UMI on the field, when your opponent activates any card effect, you can negate that effect, and then this card will gain 600 attack and defense. So on top of giving you a free special from the hand, this card is an Omni Negate. Yes, it doesn't destroy, but the thing is, we cannot ask for too much when it comes to decks like this, so we're going to take anything that we can get. And an Omni Negate on top of a floodgate effect, it's a really good combination to basically make sure that your opponent, even if they have an out to Kairyu-Shin, this card can deal with that out. So both of these cards are mandatory 3-ofs. They are the main part of the deck. We have 2 copies of Doom Kraken. Now, this card, while being really good, the reason we are not maxing it out is because it's a card that relies on other cards in order to be good. So this card, if UMI is on the field, as a quick effect, you target a water monster you control, and then you add one monster and one monster your opponent controls, and then you special summon this from your hand, you return the monster you control to the hand, and you destroy your opponent's monsters. And when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can return this card to the hand and then negate the attack. So this card right here is to make sure that you protect your Electric Jellyfish and your Kairyu-Shin from attacks, because the thing is, we do have a trap card that can summon all of these cards from the deck, but Kairyu-Shin, when summoned in defense mode, it has 700 defense points, so it's not the biggest monster. Even normal summoning an Aluber can deal with it, and this is where this card comes in. This is the card that is going to protect your monster from attacks while also giving you spot removal, and you can also recycle your own monsters as well, because if your opponent targets them with a destruction effect or something, then you can get them back to your hand, summon this guy to the field, you're going to destroy one of your opponent's monsters in the process while saving your own monsters from that effect, and also getting a negate attack for later in that turn. So yeah, this card, it's not a 3-off, but a 2-off is really good, and all of these cards are searchable in the deck through various means, so it's not like you only have to hard draw them. There are a lot of ways to search them as well, so if you need this card, you have a lot of ways to get access to it. We play 1 copy of Mega Fortress Whale. This is a card that basically can be treated as one of the boss monsters of the deck. So this card, while not as good as Kairyu-Shin, it's a card that also serves a similar purpose to Doom Kraken, protecting your field from attacks, because during the battle phase, during your opponent's battle phase, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and you destroy it, and while UMI is on the field, you can make your monsters attack your opponent's life points directly, which can help you push for a game. And also, if this card is destroyed, you can special summon or add a water warrior from your deck to your hand. The synergy with this card was supposed to be played with Legendary Fisherman, but I feel like the Legendary Fisherman package doesn't offer too much because it's a package that requires more than one card, because the Legendary Fisherman 3 is a really good card, but on its own it doesn't do anything because you need to basically tribute either Legendary Fisherman 1 or Legendary Fisherman 2 to get to the field, so you need two specific monsters in order to make it work. So I feel like this effect is not something you should try to utilize just because of the bricks that you have to play. So you have to rely more on the second effect of this card, because with another card that we got in the set, we can basically keep spamming this during the battle phase to basically protect our monsters from being destroyed by battle by destroying our opponent's monsters. We play one copy of Maiden of the Aqua. The reason this card is here is because we have a trap card that sends Umi from the field to the grave to special summon two monsters that list Umi from the deck, but then, because we did send Umi to the graveyard, we don't have an Umi on the field to basically trigger effects like the floodgate effect of Kairyu-Shin or the negation effect of Electric Jellyfish. So this is why this card in the deck helps, because you're going to special summon this card from the deck with Kairyu-Shin's Dark Rift, and while this card is on the field is treated as Umi, so you basically get all of your effects back up. So this card is a really good card to summon with Kairyu-Shin's Dark Rift, and it has 2000 defense points, so it's not easy for your opponent to deal with it if they cannot summon too many monsters because of Kairyu-Shin's Floodgate effect. We play 3 copies of Warrior of Atlantis. Getting access to Legendary Ocean is as important as it gets in this deck, so we need to maximize on every single card that can possibly get this card to our hand, and Warrior of Atlantis is one of them. You discard this to add a Legendary Ocean from your deck to your hand, and that's pretty simple. It's also a 19k beater that with Legendary Ocean on the field it becomes 21, and for a level 4 monster it's actually quite big, so this deck does not struggle in dealing damage. You have a lot of ways of doing so. Now, I did mention in the beginning of the video that this deck has a lot of problems going second, so you do need to play a couple cards that make the deck a little bit better, and one of those cards that is actually searchable in the deck that can give you some pressure going second is the one copy of Levia Dragon Daedalus. This card is a level 7 monster, becomes level 6 with Legendary Ocean, so you can summon it with only one tribute, or you can just special summon it with Electric Jellyfish's effect, and it's a monster that says that you can send an Umi you control to the grave to basically blow up the entire field except for this card. So this card, you can destroy your opponent's entire board, and if you have Stealth 2 with Umi on the field, you only need to send one of them to the grave. So if your opponent tries to negate the effect of this card and you have an Electric Jellyfish on the field, you can basically guarantee it will go through to negate what tries to negate this card, so you destroy your opponent's entire board and you are left with a really big monster on the field to attack with, and if your opponent doesn't have a follow-up, they will not be able to do much. Or if you just clear their board, and even if they do have the follow-up, if you have another Legendary Ocean with a Dark Rift, then you can get to the Kairyu-Shin lock and then your opponent will not be able to play. And the last monster we play in the deck is 2 copies of Terror King Salmon. The deck does have a lot of effects that give you vanillas from the deck for free, and even though I said that Legendary Fisherman is not a great card to play in the deck because it requires a lot of effort, getting these vanillas on the field does not require effort. The Searcher of the deck gives you access to a vanilla from the deck, and also the Dark Rift gives you access to as many vanillas as you want from the deck, but I think playing 2 is the perfect number, because if you play 1, you're going to miss it sometimes. If you play 3, you're going to brick on it a lot of the times, and this card, aside from Giga Gajigo, these 2 are the highest level 6 monsters you can play, and the reason you want to play, level 5 monsters, I'm sorry, and the reason you want to play level 5 monsters is because with Legendary Ocean, they become level 4, so then you can go into cards like Stealth Kraken or Bahamut Shark, so you can basically get free Xyz monsters during the following turn, because you do get to spam a lot of monsters. One Dark Rift basically means that you can sometimes get 4 monsters out of the deck, which is absolutely ridiculous, and on top of getting your lock, you basically get either an Omni Negate during the next turn with Toad, or you basically summon your Stealth Kraken to control the board even more. For the spell cards, we play 3 copies of Legendary Ocean. This is the best card in the game that's treated as Umi because of the effect to reduce levels. You can basically get cards like Kairyu-Shin for free on the field because they become level 4, or you can get your Daedalus with 1 less tribute because it's level 7, and also be having those level 5 vanilla monsters you can summon with Fish Sonar and Kairyu-Shin's Dark Rift can get you access to a lot of rank 4 monsters. The extra deck is not super important in this deck, because if it was, we would be playing cards like Ready Fusion, Instant Fusion, which you can kinda do with Theseus if you want, but I feel like playing Extravagance over these cards is much more important in this deck because this is a control deck, so you need to see your pieces as fast as possible, but still, it's something that you can utilize to get access to some really powerful water monsters. We play 1 copy of Terraforming. Again, you need to play as many copies of Legendary Ocean as possible, because if you don't have it, all of your effects are dead. You cannot use Dark Rift, you cannot activate Electric Jellyfish's effect to basically Omni Negate, you don't have the Floodgate effect. You need to see Legendary Ocean in your starting card, otherwise you are not playing the game. We play 3 copies of Fish Sonar. Now, this is by far the best card in the deck. So what this card does is that you can add a level 7 or lower monster from your deck that lists Umi to your hand, and then if you have Umi on the field, field, you can special summon a water normal monster from your deck. This is one of the reasons why Terror-King Salmon is in the deck, because you can get a free search on top of getting a free monster on the field, and then if you have another one, you can normal summon it, and then basically go for a Bahamut Toad this way, and this is why Legendary Ocean and the vanilla monsters are too good. Even though the vanilla monsters can be considered bricky, because of cards like this, it's very easy to utilize them, and even if you draw them, they become level 4 monsters with Legendary Ocean, so you can just summon them, and Terror-King Salmon becomes 26k once you have Legendary Ocean on the field, so it's a monster that even on its own can sometimes run over some big monsters. So it's not the worst card to draw, but you don't want to draw it, but even if you draw it, you have something to do with. We play 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Now, the reason we are playing goods in this deck is because of a trap card called Ice Barrier. So we're going to talk about this again once we get to the trap cards, but basically what this card offers to the deck is another search for your high level monsters, mainly your Kairyu-Shin, but you can also search your Leviathan Dragon Daedalus going second, or your Mega Fortress Whale if you want to get access to it with another card, so you can start destroying your opponent's cards during the battle phase. So this is another card that gets you to your win condition, so you need to max it out. We play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. I mentioned that the extra deck is not very important, and it really isn't. You just play 5 monsters, 3 of each, and then you don't really care if you banish like all of them. There will be a lot of games that you won't be summoning anything from the extra deck unless you get access to a lot of Terror-King Salmons, but this card giving you the free draw 2 in a deck like this, you need to see a certain combination of cards in order to be able to lock out your opponent, so it's a really good card to have in the deck. It's much better than Prosperity, because I feel like Prosperity is better in good decks that they only need to see one certain card in order to win, but when you're playing a weaker deck, Extravagance becomes much better because it gives you that +1 you need in order to keep advantage, because you don't have a lot of ways to basically grind, so this extra card can help you a lot of the times. We play 1 copy of Sea Stealth 2. This is another card that can be treated as UMI, but the reason this card is not as good as Legendary Ocean is because it doesn't decrease the levels. So this card basically says that during the battle phase, you can summon a water monster from your hand or graveyard, and then this is the card that you're going to be summoning your Mega Fortress Whale with most of the times in order to be able to basically destroy one of your opponent's cards. And also your opponent cannot target water monsters you control with non-water monster effects. So if your opponent has monster effects that target and basically have this on the field, your monsters are already free of any targeting effect, so you basically get another body on the field that your opponent will not be able to deal with. And once you have a lot of monsters on the field, if your opponent cannot really deal with them by targeting them, and there is another card in the deck that protects them from battle, you have a lock that is very, very difficult to deal with, and this is why this deck can be very scary when it goes first. And the last spell card is 1 copy of Call by the Grave, because it's a broken card, and we need to protect Kairyu-Shin's Dark Rift from Ash Blossom, because if this card gets ashed, then you lose a lot of your power, so we need to be able to protect that. Speaking of which, let's get to the trap cards. We have 3 copies of Kairyu-Shin's Dark Rift. This is the main win button of the deck, so you can send a face-up UMI you control to the grave to special summon 2 monsters with different names from your hand or deck that mention UMI from your deck to defense mode, and then if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon any number of level 6 or lower water normal monsters from your hand or deck. And this card locks you into water monsters for 2 turns, but it doesn't matter because everything aside from 1 extra deck card in this deck is water. So this card, you get to your UMI on the field, you set this, you send your UMI to the grave, and because you have to send your UMI to the grave, this is where Maiden of the Aqua comes in, because you need to have UMI on the field in order to use the effects. So you wait for your opponent to summon a monster, you summon your Maiden of the Aqua and your Kairyu-Shin, you basically lock them from summoning anything else if they don't have any water monsters, and also you get 2 Terror-King Salmons on the field, which are going to give you either attack power during the following turn to basically go for OTKs, or if you have another Legendary Ocean, you can go for Bahamut Shark and Toad to get another interruption, or you can go for Stealth Kraken to start cracking your opponent's board. So yeah, this card is the main win condition of the deck because it gets to Kairyu-Shin and a lot of other cards, and if you have already Maiden of the Aqua, or if you have another way to get the Legendary Ocean back on the field, like with a Metaverse or with a Stealth attack, then you can summon cards like your Jellyfish to get an Omni Negate. If you already have that, you can summon your Mega Fortress Whale or your Doom Kraken to make sure you protect your monster from attacks. Yep, this card is absolutely ridiculous, and because of how good it is, we also play 3 copies of Trap Trick to get access to it, because again, this card just outright wins games on its own, so you need to see it as consistently as possible. It is searchable through Kairyu-Shin, so you do have a lot of other ways to be able to get to it, but maxing out on Trap Trick just for this one trap card I feel like is important for the deck just because of how good the trap card is. We play 1 copy of Sea Stealth Attack. This is a continuous card that on activation is going to get you an UMI from the graveyard back to the field, so sometimes you can activate Dark Rift, send your UMI to the grave, and then afterwards chain this card right after to get back the UMI on the field, and because you did that, you don't need to summon Maiden of the Aqua again from the deck, so you can summon your Kairyu-Shin with a Jellyfish to get a negate, or your Mega Fort as well to get a destruction. And also this card has really good synergy with Sea Stealth 2, because Sea Stealth 2 destroys the monsters you summon during the battle phase at the end of the battle phase. But this card has an effect that you can banish a water monster you control to basically protect your face-up spells and traps from being destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So if you do that and you banish the monster that you bring back with Stealth 2, it's not going to get destroyed because it's no longer on the field, and you're going to get it back during the end phase, so you basically get a free body on the field every turn. And on top of that, this card has an effect that it basically says that your level 5 or higher monsters that are original level are 5, which is important because of Legendary Ocean, basically get to destroy any monster that they battle. So it's as long as you have this card on the field, your Kairyu-Shin is basically invincible. There is a lock where you have this Stealth 2 and Kairyu-Shin with Legendary Ocean. Your opponent cannot target your Kairyu-Shin with any monster effects that are non-water. They cannot destroy it by battle by any monster because it's originally a level 5. And if you have another water monster on the field to be able to summon every turn with Stealth 2, you can basically protect all of your cards, some cards like Twin Twisters and Happy's Feather Duster with the first effect. So yeah, this lock is very, very difficult to out without any specific side deck cards. We play one copy of Ice Barrier. This is the trap card that we send with Foolish Burial Goods, because this card you can banish it from the grave to send a water monster from your deck to the grave, and then you can add a level 5 or higher water monster from your grave to your hand. So with this card, you're going to be sending your high level monsters to the grave, and you're going to be adding them back right after. So it's another way to get access to Kairyu-Shin, your Leviathan Dragon, your Mega Fortress Whale. And even if you hard draw this card, its field effect is not terrible. It's another way to protect your Kairyu-Shin or your Jellyfish from attacks. So when an attack is declared involving your opponent's monsters, you change that monster's attack to 0, you negate its effects, and it cannot change its battle position, and this effect is permanent. So it's an easy way to save your monsters from an attack, because the biggest weakness of this deck is that it doesn't have a lot of stats. So if you have like a Jellyfish on the field, your opponent knows that it's non-negate, so before they do anything, they're going to normal summon something that is bigger, and they will try to run it over, and this is why the deck has like cards like Doom Kraken and Mega Fortress Whale to protect your monsters from cards like that. And this card, if you're unfortunate enough to draw it, you can still use it this way, and then it will go to the graveyard, and then you can use its search effect afterwards. And the last card in the deck is one copy of Metaverse. It's another copy of Legendary Ocean, and the cool thing about Metaverse is that it can act as a stealth attacks effect, because you activate your Dark Reef, you send your UMI to the grave, and then you chain your Metaverse to get another one from the deck, which means that you will not have once again to summon your Maiden of the Aqua from the deck, so you can get another thing on top of your Kairyu-Shin to basically make the lock even stronger. Now, the extra deck is not important. You can basically play 15 random cards in the extra deck, and you will most of the game see the exact same results, but in case it comes up, we do play 5 exact cards, 3 of which because of extravagance. So these cards are 3 copies of Stealth Kraken. It's a card that you can use in a lot of water decks, and it's a really good monster. It's very annoying to deal with because it floats when it's destroyed, and it also makes your opponent's monsters water, which in some matchups like Salamangreats is going to be very annoying because they will not be able to go into cards like Sunlight Wolf, and it also pops cards as well. And when it's destroyed, you go into your 3 copies of Kraken Spawn. You're going to be summoning 2 of these guys when your Stealth Kraken is destroyed, because you summon 1 of each depending on how many materials it had, and it always have 2 materials because it doesn't need to detach in order to use the destruction effect. And these guys basically do the same thing, but they don't make your opponent's monsters water, but it doesn't matter too much because you just get extra bodies on the field, and these guys also float into Stealth Kraken from the grave. We play 3 copies of Bahamut Shark because it's a card that you can summon very easily in the deck again, and we go into one of the 3 copies of Totally Awesome to get you another negate. And Toad is very easy to recycle with its grave effect, because Stealth Kraken has an effect that you can attach water monsters from the grave as material to the Kraken spawns that you summon, and then you just keep putting toads under them, so every time they go to the grave again, you keep getting water monsters from the grave back into your hand. So it's an easy way to keep grinding, so you can basically never lose to the grind game with any deck. And the last monster is 3 copies of Zeus, because we do play Xyz monsters in the extra deck, so in case any of them lands an attack, we can get a Zeus on the field to basically get some more pressure on the board if we don't have a lot going for us, especially going second, because it's a very similar effect to Daedalus. You need such effects in order to clear boards and then establish your lock to make sure that your opponent doesn't establish their own board again back at you. So yep, that's the deck, guys. This deck is a really fun deck, so if you're a fan of water decks, I highly recommend picking this deck up. It's a very budget deck, I would say. I don't feel like there's anything too expensive, because again, the extra deck is not important, so don't feel like you have to play 3 Toads and 3 Zeus in order to make this work. The extra deck doesn't matter too much. So the main deck is fairly budget. You can pick it up for basically less than like 40 or 50 bucks. So it's a deck that got out released right now, and it's the one that people do not really care about because it's not the meta deck. People care about Sharks, people care about Marineses. These decks are the ones that do have the potential to be tier 2 strategies in the future, so they can potentially be good decks in tournaments. But this deck, not so much, is the accurate fun deck of the set. So yeah, if you're a fan of this deck, if you like the artworks, if you like the anime and you like the retrains, pick this up. I highly recommend it. It's a really, really fun deck. You're going to have a blast playing with it, and if you catch off your opponents off guard and you win some dice rolls, then you can basically get some wins at locals and even sometimes regionals if you're feeling sharing. So yep, that's the deck, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.